John Micek is a political columnist with PennLive.com and joins us now. John, what do you make of the latest developments with this fiery book?
Good evening to you, Scott. It's pretty amazing hearing Steve Bannon backtrack on these remarks that he made to the journalist Michael Wolff. Obsequious really doesn't do justice to Mr. Bannon's behavior over the last, say, 72 hours. He's been trying as hard as he can to make amends with Donald Trump, but yet finds himself on the receiving end of his very own Trumpian nickname. He's now being called Sloppy Steve by the president. We saw that reference as recently as Sunday during remarks from Camp David. It was a damaging thing for Mr. Bannon to do, quite frankly, a perplexing thing for Mr. Bannon to do, since his business model at Breitbart, the conservative website, pretty much depends on surviving and remaining in the administration's good graces.
What do you think of how the White House has handled everything since the revelations came out in this book?
It's been just one sort of dumpster fire after another. Every report was that the White House was taken unawares by the sped up release of Michael Wolff's book. They've been hitting back as hard as they possibly can. There's an advisor to Melania Trump, the First Lady, who said this book would be sold in the bargain fiction bin. Mr. Wolff has been on American television defending the book right and left, as recently as Morning Joe this morning, here during drive time in the United States. It's the problem that won't go away for the Trump White House.
Considering the way they've reacted to this, isn't the White House and Donald Trump only fueling interest and even more sales of this book?
The dignified route would be to rise above this, to dismiss Mr. Wolff out of hand and then move on. But Mr. Trump, being the counterpuncher that he is, unable to let even the smallest slight pass him by, feels obligated to continue his feud with Mr. Wolff and his feud with Mr. Bannon, and that just keeps this story going.
The Russia investigation is something that Donald Trump has been completely infatuated by, claiming that it potentially is something that should be ended. Now the potential, I mean, there are reports that there's potential that the investigators may want to speak with Trump directly. How would you see that going over?
That is the Trump legal team's worst nightmare come true. The last thing they want to do is to let Robert Mueller, the special counsel, get the president of the United States under oath, where it'd have him at complete mercy. We see them trying to sort of negotiate the terms of any interview to try to limit the scope of any interview. There was some talk this afternoon that perhaps some of the questions might be submitted in writing. All the better to minimize any exposure for Mr. Trump. Knowing the way that the president runs on at the mouth, you can only imagine that Mr. Mueller would want to get him under oath and fire every single question under the sun at him.
That gesture, if it's seen as very aggressive by the White House, is there a chance now that Donald Trump could say, you know what, we're basically going to try to end this investigation outright?
Again, that's just, as politically damaging as it gets for Donald Trump. There is no percentage in Mr. Trump trying to remove Mr. Mueller from this investigation. And in any event, the investigation would continue, with some other person running it. This thing now has a life of its own. The best the White House can do, I think, is just try to keep the flames down as best it can.
Political columnist with PennLive.com, John Micek. John, thank you very much for joining us.
You bet. Have a great night.